Hello and welcome to another episode of Brand Retro. And today on the podcast we have Dave Behar. Dave, welcome to the podcast and thank you for being on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about, just to get us started, tell me a little bit about Ion, what you're doing there, and kind of what this whole media sports world looks like for you.
Yeah. Well, it stretches beyond sports. It is lifestyle, right? And
Okay.
sports is lifestyle. Sports is our passion. In many cases, in fact, when you're talking about sports, some folks think there's only a handful of sports out there when there's, in fact, over 150 plus sports, especially worldwide. But our business, and one thing is business, one thing is personal when it comes to our brand, because it is about localization and personalization in how our business flows, and also kind of personalizing and activating those brands that participate with us in league flow. But Ion is essentially thousands of local channels in North America, channel for every town, and we simply go into what is multi-platform, which we have our OTT platform, which is in scaling along with our digital internet and mobile. So we both support what is our own production. So we do have a media production business. We have a content, track content creators that would like to have distribution inside our network and also outside the network, which includes simply events and leagues that we support as a network, because then we bring value to those leagues and that programming, and of course love the innovation of what the content creation world is doing over the past so many years. And now it's going to get quite juicy, and we'll be doing a lot of leading in that department.
Because a lot of these sports, and I would guess maybe not all, but a vast majority of them are a little obscure. And like you said, there's a lot more out there than just basketball, football, those things. How does that play into your strategy as to how you kind of build out your brand, your networks? And then to the point you made, how is kind of today's media, TikTok, those kinds of things, how is that playing into your kind of your marketing strategy?
Okay, so you say the word strategy, and that word could be even misunderstood, right? Because some of it is just really organic. So if we're producing something, as in we're the media partner for League XYZ, and we can get into what some of those leagues may be, but we're essentially looking towards the distribution and giving them a toolbox, those organizations, and then brands as a result, to flourish over the different types of social media. There's more than just one. Yeah. Some may be more popular than others, but on the most part, we want folks to know where the origin of some of this is, especially with our support, because that gives then that brand and those leagues more value, with our DNA as a background. So, league-wise and sport-wise, it goes on and on. There's all sorts of derivatives of the most popular sports. Heck, in beach volleyball, there's not just beach volleyball and indoor volleyball, but there's other disciplines, including grass volleyball, as an example, water volleyball, so just as an example. But those are then connected to database, and the database is the marketplace. So both from a sports standpoint, the enthusiasts or eye enthusiasts, and also locality plays a huge role. Local is everything.
So are you working with these leagues to then also kind of develop that footing in the marketplace and how to kind of get their word out there? And and if so, how do you balance all that? Because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there is. And, again, we're all entrepreneurs. And so I love supporting the world of entrepreneurism. And there are, just like in a client standpoint, you want to find out what that brand's and that organization's voids are so you can fill them, and hopefully you have the capability to do that. When it comes to leagues, at whatever level, whether it be, let's call it amateur or participation up to professional, got to find out where their needs are, but actually where their voids are. And that could be really subjective, but at the same time, that's where we excel, and that's where my background is in just building that autonomy for the folks that are creating these masterpieces that they have a high affinity towards. Right. And they may not be marketers, but they're purveyors of that sport. And then you just take a look at, again, where's the need? And with any luck, we're able to fill it besides what you would think we were able to do, and just from a media, even production and distribution standpoint, but
Yeah.
certainly on the brand partnering. So monetization, because
Yeah.
everything is about the brand, and then, of course, money from there.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think that, people look at brands like the NFL, the NBA, like these well established brands, and it clicks to them. It makes total sense in the world as to why they are the brands that they are and how big they are. But
Yep.
when you're on the other side of the spectrum and you're just trying to get your kind of your brand or your business or your league off the ground, what what role do you see branding playing in all that? Is it a top priority? Is it somewhere in the middle? How do you guide these leagues into understanding that it may not be the be all end all depending on where they're at in the process, but it's definitely something you don't want to neglect?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, is that brand, that league brand resonating with the athletes? And then resonating, is it even something that company XYZ would like to sponsor, let alone the consumer wants to watch? So, we consider those as like the I ingredients that make up what is again, the brand assets, and those things that have to be assessed a little bit. Some are assessed more on the fly, some are a little more qualitative than just quantitative, just like data. But what is the database in order for it to be traction, and or where's the data if it isn't already being met? So, in this case, that's where it gets really exciting. You bring up NFL, NBA, and such, and those are amazing models, amazing leaders
Yeah.
over so many years of success, but they too had those origins where they're figuring it out at an early stage, and there being some stumbles and such, and they have to keep updating their brand and keep updating their methodologies of attracting fans, attracting, again, brand partners categorically, and for that matter, those initiatives that drive business even into the stores, brick and mortar, as well as online. So there's transactions that can take place and help fund everything. So besides just the viewership and what happens over those media contracts. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are the ingredients that you mentioned that kind of go into sports branding and league branding and stuff like that? Are those ingredients transferable to other businesses, or what? Kind of talk me through kind of how you've come to what ingredients you kind of push out there or what you kind of teach, but also how do those people then apply that to their brand or their league?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to correct you, and you call them ingredients. I call them I ingredients.
Okay.
But
My ingredients got
nonetheless,
it.
and that's one of our brand pillars, if you will, right? But
Yep.
nonetheless, you got to remember that everyone has their affinities in what they watch, consume, believe in, purpose-driven type activity. And I can say, well, I like college football more than pro football, and there's a number of reasons besides my San Diego State Aztecs in what is their new stadium and in their new brand partner that has titled that stadium Snapdragon, which is Qualcomm. Again, those things that are positioning a brand that aligns it with the audience, that viewership, whether it be on location or on the screen, to then resonate with what is, hey, I'm going to go and check them out. I'm going to transact. I'm going to click this, watch that, and go buy that brand. Go because of their association with that sport, that initiative, whatever it may be. And I mean, we could talk
Hmm.
about some of the trends there, but the end of the day, you're talking about alignments, collaboration, and then of course the execution of those things, which is absolutely critical, especially when we're talking about investment. And of course, in our case, when we apply there's a little science to it, but it's eye investment, and because if there's anything that's coming into our realm, our world, we're executing and trying to over deliver whatever it is that the original initiative was about. So.
How would you kind of explain, throughout the course of your career that how brand management has evolved from kind of the old school method to the new school method, and kind of what that looks like today, especially with, I mean, I don't know how this affects you or if it even does, but just in the last 12 to 18 months, the inflection of AI, and
Yeah,
obviously TikTok has exploded, and there's probably 10 other social medias coming in the next couple of years that are going to
right.
change things. What does that look like, from what it was even 3, 4 years ago?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, that that's a huge subject, obviously. And AI has been around for years. It's just been a little bit more consumerized now, and however else you want to call it, where it's been mass, marketed. It's now routinely known this is happening behind the scenes, besides the toolboxes that companies are building. And then, of course, there's two words, artificial intelligence, and the artificial is where part of the challenge is. I like intelligence, I love eye intelligence, but at the same time, so it's utilizing it effectively. And then when you're talking about other social networks or whatever those other social networks are, is that meeting the need of that, let's say, brand, let alone yourself, whether no matter what business you're in, or are you just chasing numbers and chasing things and spending against what? Because it's true that all this is meant to be hyper targeted and not necessarily hyper local, but is it meeting the needs, and at what cost? And
Yeah.
what's the return on that investment in using AI, even though one would say, oh, it's going to be the most cost effective way of reaching people, but people have to maintain AI. They have to plug in information, as you know, in order for it to be effective in the first place.
Yeah.
And then, is it indeed artificial traffic, or is it actually real, let alone the viewership? So then you've got to make sure that, where's the authenticity in your business, the integrity or eye integrity in our case, and that is indeed an important factor in seeing what is the actual return on your investment, let alone on your, brand integrity. Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, are you growing as a result? Are those real people checking you out as a result of AI?
Yeah.
And but it's a whole nother consideration when you're basing your whole strategy around AI, because where's the meat and potatoes?
Yeah. Are you guys utilizing AI currently or leveraging it for anything within your business?
I'm not going to say it's a proprietary. The reality is that most companies have been using AI, whether they knew it or not, since they've been
Yeah.
operating on the internet.
Yeah.
So in our case, I'd say yes, but not necessarily purposely. And anybody that's using any of today's social media platforms is using AI, whether they're doing a subscription to a certain AI platform or not, but whether, because that's all picked up by algorithm, and one way or another, there's some AI buttons being pushed, whether you're pushing them or not. And
Yep.
again, in our case, that's routinely how people are found today. And should I even say, a massive brand like Google, and for that matter, Meta and Facebook, again, they're built on AI,
Yeah.
and more
Well,
and
and
more to lead the conversation. Whether they'll be leaders to the extent they are or not as they are today is another story, because of how much innovation is going on in the marketplace and continues to. So
yeah. Yeah, and just I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, but just to
it's
turn the
fine, Mike.
mirror
No,
on
you're
myself,
yeah,
I mean, I don't look at AI as a replacement for people.
yeah,
So do I fully embrace? No, not really. But I leverage, I dabble just
yeah,
because I think it's something we need to educate ourselves on. And there are times it'll expedite a project or it'll help you in a certain way, but
yeah,
to me, I haven't seen I don't have the confidence at the moment that it does not also need human involvement. So so
yeah.
yes, we leverage it and we dabble with it, but we're not just running it through, chat GPT and turning in that
Right.
homework. It's like we're making sure that it still aligns with, like you'd mentioned, with the authenticity of our brand, our clients, the project, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it's getting a healthy dose of cyber dogs before it goes anywhere else.
And it's not rough with
Correct.
cyber dogs. That
Yeah,
was a
right.
bad joke.
Yeah, well, no, I got it. I've actually used that one myself, but no, I got it.
I hope so. No, it's all good, Mike. I mean, so I think just part of it is that we can't avoid AI. Just depends on how you integrate it. And then what's behind it. Because at the end of the day, you are talking about, what is produced that is then real or made up. And that's for part of the real part. We're even talking about news. I mean, our world is also nested in journalism, not just what
Yep.
you call media and whatever can be shock value or viral, blah, 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 but actual authentic journalism and kind of like the rely on ion factor. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so how do you tell if something's real or not? And to some extent, you have to choose accordingly. Like you could do a search for a certain topic, whether it's something that just happened or, is a topic that's existing, even evergreen. It's a very good chance that half of those results, are AI generated and may not necessarily be from a proven source. And
Yep.
that's a challenge. So then it's a matter of making you work a little harder to make sure that you've got, again, the authenticity value, that I think is just super important,
Yeah.
especially
No,
when
I
you're being a purveyor of a brand that has some integrity behind it.
Yeah, and I think if done right, I mean, all brands should have integrity behind it, but at the same
Yeah,
time,
for
I
sure.
mean, as we wrap things up, I want you to tell me a little bit about Ion, where they can find more information about you, more information about Ion itself, and just kind of where they can follow along with everything you guys are doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just I would say simply ions.com,
Okay.
ions.com. And, again, we've got channels, all over the place that are topical and certainly local channels. But at the same time, you can just look it up under that. And there's definitely some socials. It's growing, but it's really, we ourselves are a growing network on the
Okay.
social side and socialization. So, yeah, so
Okay.
that's
I'll
it.
be.
And as far as I'm concerned, in my personal brand, I don't spend much time with the personal brand, but you can check me out a little bit through the socials, including like a LinkedIn, and
Okay.
just look up a bio. And happy to be of any help, of course.
Awesome. And for anybody that's listening, I will include those links in the show notes. So if you just kind of basically find the episode, scroll down, I'll put all that stuff right in there so it's easy for everybody to find. And with that, Dave, thank you for being on the podcast. I really
Hey,
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me.